Welcome to Startup Yale. My name is Stuart DeCue. I'm the Executive Director of the Yale Center for Business and the Environment. It's a joint program of the Yale School of Management and the Yale School of the Environment. And we're the host for the Planetary Solutions Prize, along with the Planetary Solutions program at the Provost office. But I want to start just by thanking all the partners who've made this possible. So first, everyone, looking around and seeing what's been put together, this is the product of an incredible amount of work, effort, and energy of the team at SciCity, leading this along with that range of partners that you see on the screen behind you or on the side. It's a real collaboration of an entire community of people at Yale who deeply, deeply care about the innovation, the ideas, the creative activity, the kind of drive of students across campus, and deeply believe in that. And so this has gone on for 10 years now. And if you can kind of transport back and think 10 years ago, this was just a group of people who no one told anybody across the university that we should come together. There was no directive. There were just a lot of individual innovation centers in areas who really deeply believed that their areas at public health, in medicine, in technology, in the environment, at the School of Management had real merit and incredible talent, and made an effort to kind of where do we weave that together and create a space where they're all showcased and featured in a thoughtful and creative way. And SciCity then took that on and has really turned it into something special. So you're sitting here at the Net Zero Hotel, the first of it in the United States, an incredible kind of product of innovation and architecture, and an amazing part of a Yale alum actually leading and doing all of this. And before we were kind of a ragtag, and started to say ragtag and scrappy at Yale, but really it did not look like this, and it was not organized in this way. So it's a real tribute to the people who put this together, and thanks so much for the organizers, the individual organizers who've done this as well. So welcome to Startup Yale. We're going to get started in just a sec here with it. I'm going to just go over a few quick things. Julie Zimmerman, the Vice Provost from the Planetary Solutions at the Provost office, will be coming up to talk about the Planetary Solutions Prize. And then we'll get into introducing the judges and the teams for today. Everybody ready? Yeah. All right, that's what I like to hear. First, I would like for everybody just to pause, look at the screens, take a moment and read the land acknowledgement. Now, typically we read this out loud, and people may have heard this at a number of events at Yale, but I would really like for folks to have read it quietly and then think about what the action is. Where are we stewards? Where are we actually taking an action? Where are we doing something? Where is this a statement that then leads to a concrete action that people are doing and to stewards of the planet? When we think about the planetary boundaries that we are potentially exceeding, when we think about the places that we care about, and we think about the peoples who've come with deep respect and care for the land, where do we take a step and an action following this to kind of respect that over a period of time? So with that, we've had the incredible privilege and honor at the Yale Center for Business and the Environment of being the first prize that was established in 2009. Way back before there was even kind of a Startup Yale all interconnected, and it was $25,000. And that prize has been $25,000 since that point in time. And in the last number of years, there's been an incredible, a seismic change at Yale, which has really made an incredible difference for all the people who care about climate, who care about planetary solutions, who care about seeing their communities healthier. Last year, actually, there was a seismic event at this. When we were doing this pitch competition, there was someone pitching who actually was in the middle of pitching, and there was a small earthquake. And she said, well, I know this is a groundbreaking idea. It's very good on her part. But the seismic shift has been the Planetary Solutions program at Yale. And Julie Zimmerman, who is one of the most skilled mentors, one of the people who has created an entire ecosystem for entrepreneurs in and around Yale, who has given her time and energy to PhDs, postdocs, master's students, and undergrads, who've all then been able to kind of launch things out of the university, is now the central hub, the human, along with a great team who is kind of making sure that all Yale is and all that Yale does is focused on climate. And one of the things she partnered with us on was to be able to expand this prize to $50,000 and to honor and respect the second place team as well. We have two parts of this now. There's a $35,000 first place prize and a $15,000 second place prize. And I'll just tell you very quickly why that matters. In 2019, the second place prize team was a group called Cambium Carbon. That team has raised $32 million, just closed an $18 million round, and is growing massively across the United States. Like, the judges, we really deeply respect you, don't always get it like completely right. So, we have to make sure that all the kind of people who are coming up with innovative ideas and wonderful solutions are sort of respected and seen, and where we can award that. So, Julie, I'd love to have you come up and talk about Planetary Solutions. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Stu. That was an amazing introduction and setup for this, and I think we should thank Stu and give him a huge round of applause. Like, the center and the hub for this might sit at the provost's office, but Stu is the energy that powers everything that is happening, and so just so much gratitude for you. I'm really excited to be here. So I sit in the provost's office. How many of you know what a provost is? Right? Yeah. So this is the chief academic officer for the university. So think of like a COO. What happens? How do we operate as an academic institution? And to see planetary solutions in climate and sustainability at the center now, and really looking out across campus. So Stu mentioned our mission statement. It's taking all that Yale is and all that Yale does to drive planetary solutions. That's all that we are. That's our students, our faculty, our staff, but it's our buildings and our collections and our resources and our endowment. And it's all that we do, teaching, research, learning, convening, and innovating, right? And so I am really excited to be here to see this come together in this way and at this moment. So I know we are all living in really complicated times, but you guys know and we know there is reality. I can stand up here and say, I heard the provost say we believe in facts and we believe in science. And it's astounding that you have to say that out loud in 2025. But what you guys are doing is real. These are real innovations. This is real breakthroughs. This will make real change and have real impact. And so you should not feel down or dissuaded or discouraged, because we are looking to you to drive this forward. We are looking to you for the reality and the change and the impact that we want to see. So all of our work, and I have this amazing team who's here, so Sarah and Ash and Alex, who all work on this, and we every day say, how do we turn knowledge and what's happening on campus into impact in the world? That's what we want to do. And so you guys are the embodiment of that, and we are so excited to see where you go. So I wish the pitchers the best of luck today. And we are out there trying to make sure we can raise prize money for the 3rd and 4th place teams and 5th and 6th, right? So no, we are working for you, and we are looking to you for the future. So good luck.
Thanks so much, Julie. And so we do get to give out real money today, which is also fun. So you all see on your chairs, there's an audience prize voting where you see those. So that is where you get to vote. Now, a couple of quick things on this. You need to listen to all the pitches before you vote. Like, you can't just hear the first one and say, that's my pick. So wait until you hear all 4 to be able to go through it. And then this is $2,000 that you all vote, and then that will be awarded as well. So we're going to hear 4 fantastic pitches from teams drawn from across Yale. There's no questions we're going to be taking from the audience. Our judges have been well prepared. They've read all the materials. They've been thinking about this. And so they're going to have a rapid fire set of questions for each team. You're then going to vote. And then they're going to retire and have one of the most difficult decisions of the day. And then we're going to come back and award the prizes at the end of the day. Sound good? Yeah. All right. Josie, did I miss anything? Screw anything up?
If you don't have one on your seat, we'll walk around with more at the end. So don't worry.
Great. Okay. Cool. All right. So we have 4 finalists. They're going to be introduced in a bit. They're drawn from all across Yale. We've got PhDs, we've got students from SOM, we've got students from YSE. We've got a whole host of people who are around the university working on incredible solutions to the things that, like, the 45% of problems that we don't yet have solutions for. Like, where are we really thinking about kind of pushing the boundaries in innovation and entrepreneurship? And then we've got a fantastic group of judges. So these are folks, Yale College, YSE, SOM, some even may refer to themselves as forestry back when they graduated. But Justine Lee, who's the CEO of Climate Haven, thank you for being here, Justine. Amir Mayer, a YSE SOM alum from way back in the day, who can also quote Cicero to you if you'd like to go talk to him about that. Lindsay Green, who's an SOM alumna, a classmate of mine at SOM, was the person who, like Casey Pickett and I would always say, that's going to be the person who's the most successful out of all of this, isn't it? So she now runs the Brooklyn Aviary. We got Brandon, who's a Yale College alum, works for Ecosystem Integrity Fund. It's been a fantastic kind of partner with us in evaluating these over time. Deborah Spalding, who serves on the Yale Center for Business Environment Advisory Board and is the global head of nature and conservation for Conservation International, recently in that new role. Thank you all for being here, and thank you so much for taking the time to work with these teams and look at these. And then we're going to get into the fun stuff, because you don't need to hear from me anymore. You need to hear from these pitchers. So our first pitcher is Mutter AI, and thrilled to welcome Nadia and the team up to the stage.
All right, good morning, Startup Yale. I don't have any live earthquake demos today, but thank you again for being here. In the past 2 years, tornadoes, wildfires, hurricanes, and flooding and extreme weather events have impacted 90 million Americans across 28 states. And what we've seen from that situation is that our response and the detection for these natural disasters is out of date. And that's why we built Mutter AI. Mutter AI stands for Managing Unprecedented Disaster Evacuations and Recovery. We saw that there was a gap in hurricane preparedness, and so the product that we have built out is for hurricane detection and response, but we're hoping to also build it out across the sector of climate disasters. And so what Mutter AI does is it takes data that has been previously siloed in different streams and unifies it to provide a unified view of the disaster. What we do is we take drone imagery, satellite data, along with social media analytics and community information to be able to create a full response to the disaster systems. The Mutter AI solution suite is specifically targeted to really impact the disaster ecosystem in a way that really revolutionizes the response and preparedness. Over 75% of small and medium-sized cities have not updated their disaster response plan in the past 5 years. In fact, Palm Beach County, one of America's wealthiest counties, has a 2-page PDF document that it uses as its disaster response plan from 2016. And all 67 counties in Florida, my home state, all rely on 3-hour-old PowerPoint presentations. And so by the time they receive them, that data is already old. And what Mutter AI does is it collects and unifies all of this information from weather forecast, social media, satellite, and drone imagery to provide a unified view of the problem in a way that is cohesive and coherent to everyone that is working on the disaster. Our predictive analytics identify impact zones before the disaster strikes. We also estimate damage and resource needs and deploy resources when the deployment of people and resources and supplies is really critical, especially when minutes are at play. We have built our system following the United Nations Early Warnings for All initiative. The Early Warnings for All initiative is really important because we're taking our system that looks at the Early Warnings for All initiative that looks at how to respond to disaster risk, how to do the response and the detection, as well as the warning systems. And then we've mapped out our use cases as well to help with disaster forecasting, disaster real-time data analytics, along with disaster recovery solutions and the resiliency training. And so we're integrating all four of these use cases to be able to create a coherent vision. And the revenue model and the opportunity that we have are important because the actual space of disaster management is burgeoning. And by the year 2026, the total available market will be close to $20.9 billion. And we're hoping through support from the Yale Planetary Solutions Prize to be able to do 2 pilot programs, as well as to start our goal of being able to have 20 to 25 customers in the first year. And then we hope to grow to 40 to 75 customers in the second year, and with the goal of having over 100 customers in year 3 of our customer discovery stages. And also the other critical component of our work is that we're targeting insurance companies that cover in Florida, Texas, and California, where there's more demand and where there's also an increased frequency and occurrence of disasters. And we're also reaching out to customers through government agencies at all levels, as well as disaster and humanitarian relief agencies and tech companies that are also being impacted by these disasters, and health sector that is having to respond to these disasters. And as we also build out our product, we're doing it so that it's accessible, and that's what is a unique value proposition that we offer, is that we're offering tiered pricing, and through the pilot system that we have, we hope to be able to provide it to universities and small towns. Even, for example, when we had the earthquake here in New Haven that was focused in New York, there's also frequently like communication alert systems that happen, and so we're also able to see at the level of small and medium-sized governments as well that this is also an area that can develop a lot of growth. For cities like Miami and New York, they're going to have the access to resources to respond to disasters in ways that smaller cities like Punta Gorda would not have. And that's really what we're hoping to do, is to really democratize disaster management. And then in our final solution, what we also want to be able to do is to have enterprise level integration. So having this enterprise grade integration is also very critical, because this will allow us to really impact and move the solution forward. Thanks to support from the Startup Yale ecosystem, in previous support, we've been able to develop an MVP of our product, and we're hoping through support from the Yale Planetary Solutions Prize, which would be really catalytic to our development, is that we can do 2 pilot studies. And so if we are able to do the 2 pilot studies and start them soon, then we'll be able to catch this year's hurricane season, which starts in June of 2025. And so our plan is to be able to onboard and start onboarding the 2 pilot studies by next month. And then when we have the live hurricane season, we'll be able to collect that real-time data. And that will really help us grow, because we'll be able to use it in the actual use case scenario. We also have 3 specific types of revenue streams that we hope to develop. So we have the SaaS platform that we have developed, and then we also hope to be able to have community engagement and innovation, and as well as broader global adaptation of the product through training. And then we also have a component that includes strategic public-private partnerships. I've also been able to work to be able to develop critical partnerships, particularly with Google Cloud and AWS, to build out our MVP product. And we've also been being able to get technical and business development support from accelerator programs, including Climate Haven and Starter Studio. And then we're also hoping to really further expand through the stages of our development. And so by being able to do the 2 to 4 pilot studies by May and then having these customer trials go live in July, that will really put us on a strong trajectory for growth. And the $35,000 from Startup Yale would really help us in terms of being ready for the 2025 hurricane season. And so we have really focusing on 5 specific areas that we're enhancing the situation for disaster response, which includes streamlining operations, 3D modeling and simulation, data-driven machine learning, real-time monitoring, and enterprise integration. We also have a strong team that we've assembled to really improve how disasters are going to be detected and be able to respond to it. And so with that, I'll yield my time and open it up to questions. Thank you.
Hi, great presentation, Nadia. I'm curious if you could elaborate a little more on the pilots and what goals you're hoping to get out of them, and specifically tied to like the future customer targets. What data have they asked to see coming out of the pilots?
Right, and so for the pilot project that we have developed, we're really focusing right now on the trajectory of the hurricane. And the pilot program that we've already developed has shown that there's strong development. And so we've been able to show really on target in terms of being able to see the variation and the deviation of what our predicted target is for the past storms and what the future target is. And so being able to test it in real time will be very critical for being able to onboard future customers.
Thank you for your presentation. A follow-up question is about the pilot or what you're really hoping to refine in the pilot in terms of what is it that you are hoping to guarantee to the customer? Say it's one of the small town emergency management offices or something. Are you hoping to increase their ability to give evacuation orders by a certain amount of hours, or like how would you describe the value proposition in like a metric?
So one of the things that we do is we provide 3 levels of warning systems, low, medium, and high alert. And this is also important because if they're not sure exactly where the hurricane is going, they won't know which areas to evacuate. And so they'll be having to spend more resources from a small city to evacuate, or they may have the hurricane right coming up to their doorstep, and they may not know until it's too late to be able to evacuate. And so this like data architecture that we have built up is able to kind of pull in specific streams as well. And the other thing that we're also looking to do is to figure out what the trajectory is of the storm. And so through my PhD research, I've been focusing on how there's these unique metastable states for hurricanes, and it's at that point is where they actually turn and curve. And that's really the science that's behind the rapid intensification of hurricanes. And if we're able to really pinpoint that, we'll be able to provide a better response where there can be a lead time of a few days and turn it into more weeks in terms of being able to predict 10 days out.
Thank you for your presentation. Question, disasters are very different in terms of type and in terms of geography. And just curious, you have the pilot projects as it relates to hurricane season. From a timing perspective, that makes sense. Have you incorporated that variability of disaster type, and how has that altered your modeling and your execution or planned execution?
Yeah, and I think that's an important question. One of my PhD papers actually focuses on how we're doing our disaster classifications wrong, is that we need to also look at the economic metrics of it. And so in this slide right here, I've actually aggregated data from economic resilience as well as all different types of disasters and shown that there's really 4 major categories of disasters. And so whether you have an industrial fire or a wildfire, even though they're classified differently, there may be a similar response to it. So our next stage would be to develop wildfire development, as well as being able to provide similar resources for hurricane deployment would be for tornado response as well.
Also, we're trying to integrate the social media analytics.
Did you want to add?
Also, we're trying to integrate the social media analytics so that, whatever data that is live, we have Facebook emergency alert where, people post about like, hey, I'm here and it's emergency or something like that. We're trying to integrate as that as well. And then, sometimes, the first, line of evacuation, people might not reach to that place. And then, through our, software, we are trying to, help, companies know about this as well. And then, they could reach out to people who are not, getting any help then. So, yeah.
Hi. You mentioned a number of different stakeholders that would benefit from this, right? Insurance companies, municipalities, a range of constituents there. What's most compelling to you in the early phase here? Who would be an early adopter, either as a paid customer or even just a trial partner?
So last summer we started doing a customer discovery through the National Science Foundation's I-Core program, and we found that the most viable first customers would be insurance companies, particularly because the value proposition for them, for example, if one house is lost, it may cost $500,000 for them to insure it. In Florida, for example, but being able to know exactly how to set the premiums and how to have more precise data from not just hurricanes, but multi-hazards, whether it's drought or flooding as well. And so on this slide, I've kind of mapped together the road closures that had happened, as well as actual flooding and where the built-out environment is. And so we can see how accurate the trajectory was for the polygon for the warning system, and also see how there needs to be further improvement. I think this also helps like at two phases. One is the disaster, like the premium setting for the insurance companies, and then the next phase would be for them to be able to provide resources for recovery.
Thank you again for the presentation, and really appreciate that you're working on this important problem that oftentimes gets neglected. Building on Brandon's question, in terms of that customer discovery, have you spoken to any insurance firms or tech companies to figure out whether they can actually incorporate the forward-looking analysis into their actuarial models? I'm just curious what, if any, feedback you've gotten with actual sort of live customer conversations around the applicability.
We spoke to the head of innovation of a couple insurance companies, and what they were actually interested in is more of like the forecasting, and especially for agricultural lands, because there was concerns about drought. And with satellite imagery, you're able to predict drought like 2 or 3 months in advance now. And so that's something that the insurance companies are particularly interested for agricultural lands.
Thank you, Monterey.
All right, thank you.
Cool. All right. Next up, we'll welcome to the stage Nick from Veristruct.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Nick Caligari. I'm a former space engineer, a current MBA student at the Yale School of Management, and the founder and CEO of Veristruct. We're in a critical moment right now for affordable housing. 3 billion people are projected to lack adequate housing by 2030. 4.5 million homes are needed to close the US housing gap. And the average cost of a house right now is over $420,000. Not to mention that 39% of global greenhouse gas emissions are from the built environment. If we're going to solve this housing crisis, we need a solution that's better for the planet, faster for the planet, cheaper for the planet, and more beautiful for the planet. And that's where Veristruct comes in. We're developing a suite of novel robotic construction technologies capable of building more sustainable, quicker, and cheaper housing. We're doing this through our patented technology that you can see here, which is able to print load-bearing walls without utilizing a support frame. How it operates is it fills these two chambers you see on the left and right, and it cures the material within those chambers, creating a track with the lip cross-section that's in the form right there. And so our plan is to deliver full housing units to residential developers, and we're starting with load-bearing walls. So I alluded to this a little bit, but the technology that enables this is translational slip-form technology, or TSF for short. And this allows for faster, more resilient, cheaper, and more sustainable construction. We're really trying to reimagine the way that we construct buildings. You can think of the common construction materials right now in the processes. You've got timber, brick and mortar, concrete. This is a whole new class outside of conventional, traditional 3D printing. What makes this technology better? A, it's faster. We bring the construction time from load-bearing walls down from 30 plus days to less than 2 days for a typical 1,000 square foot home. What we could also do is create more resilient walls. You can think about the crises right now around the world, LA wildfires, for example. Our walls are able to resist fires naturally based on the material that they utilize, able to withstand hurricane-force winds if you think about Florida hurricanes. We meet or exceed freeze-thaw cycling standards and waterproofing standards, so we could build right here in Connecticut. And our compression strengths exceed current load-bearing ratings for current walls right now. So we're meeting or exceeding all building code and regulation requirements. You might be wondering, how is this enabled? How is this happening with this crazy wall construction? The way that we do this is through sustainable material utilization that is cementitious in nature. And so we use limestone calcine clay cement, LC3, which is a low-carbon cement alternative that reduces greenhouse gas emissions by up to 40% through the utilization of calcine clay, which is an industrial byproduct of mining operations along the equator. We also utilize basalt fiber for our tension load-bearing members, allowing us to construct walls that can just go not only 1 or 2 stories, but go above that based on the way that we print. And of course, we need to win in the marketplace. So we need to be much cheaper than the traditional construction methods and cheaper than the riskier alternatives out there. Right now, we're coming in at around $68 per square foot to deliver a fully completed home. That's including everything else other than the walls. So the walls are really bringing this price down for us. Icon right now, their projections, which they are the leading construction 3D printing firm on the market, they've raised over $500 million right now. Their estimated cost is $80 per square foot, and they have a couple of disadvantages as well. It takes a little bit longer because our process routes electrical harnessing, plumbing, and insulation within the walls autonomously as the printer is printing. Theirs does not. They can only print up to 2 stories. We can go much higher. Additionally, other alternatives on the market for housing that is affordable include modular housing, so Boxable is one big example right now. Their estimated cost is around $166 for the Casita, which is their 375 square foot option. And then traditional construction methods are orders of magnitude more expensive. $275 in Connecticut, over $1,000 per square foot in California. Just to re-emphasize some key points and key differentiators with competitors, on the left, you see this giant gantry. This is the frame that construction 3D printers use. Very difficult to build out, expensive, and difficult to move from site to site. Our solution would be like this red wheelbarrow here, where it's tethered to a concrete truck. You drive up on site, untether the device, hit go, come back, and the walls are constructed. Another key differentiator for us is that our walls are smooth while their walls are ridged. And so this has been a key point of contention in a lot of community town hall meetings that want to implement affordable housing. They don't want the community members to feel ostracized living in these houses. And so if it looks a lot different, they're going to feel a certain way and it's not going to get passed. So this has been one of the big barriers for companies like Icon, where their construction looks a lot like the one on the left. And as I mentioned before, a key differentiator here is that we can build a lot higher and wider than companies like Icon. And so if you think about the affordable housing landscape and just really solving this crisis, we need more than just single-family homes. It's very important to build those, but we need the flexibility to meet the community's needs and build apartment buildings, rental units, and then other units that are necessary to meet the housing shortage within the community. As you may be well aware of, the supply chain for construction and building new residential buildings is very complicated and slow. With the added nuance that working with government and each section in this chain has to meet certain regulatory and building compliance. So if you really want to be a successful solution that's delivering housing to those that need it quickly, efficiently, and safely, you need to simplify and expedite as much of the supply chain as possible. And so that's why we've converged on taking what we can in-house and really just delivering a solution of real estate developers that gives them an option for lower cost residential construction. And so we've had conversations in the space with general contractors, with residential development arms for different municipalities, and then also other real estate developers. And the two biggest things on their mind are cost and compliance. And so that's really influenced the way that we've designed our product and designed our offering. And of course, the opportunity is huge. So if you think about the median cost of a house right now in the US, $420,000, and the housing shortage being 4.5 million residential units, if we just take 5% of this market and are able to deliver a solution that really helps people at a $100,000 margin per house, that's a $22.5 billion market opportunity with the potential to build over 225,000 homes and avoid 5.7 billion kilograms of CO2 emissions. That's right now what the baseline of the material we're utilizing, which we're showing that has the potential to work with our technology, of a 40% greenhouse gas emission reduction. Our goal, though, for our company is to bring that down even further to carbon neutral or even carbon negative. Here's our leadership team. I'm Nick. As I mentioned before, Jennifer McFadden and Michael Warner in the crowd. Associate Director of Entrepreneurship and Legislative Policy Analyst for Connecticut, respectively. Our team is here as well. If they could stand up real quick, I just want to make sure they get recognition. Thank you guys for coming out. What we've built so far, we have like a small-scale prototype demonstrating printing with wax, which is a semi-representative material, based on the limited funding we have. Provisional patent filed, 3 non-provisionals in the work, architectural renders, and hundreds of interviews right now with people that are working in the space. We've gotten a lot of recognition we're very thankful for, including a TEDx talk and then a feature for the For Humanity Illuminated campaign. And we are at a critical point right now where the Planetary Solutions Prize would be instrumental in helping us achieve scale. So supporting our team through the summer, funding the necessary material R&D to really prove that we can use these sustainable materials effectively. We have 500 pounds of aggregate we just got from a company locally right now. So we're really excited to utilize that. Supporting filing the rest of our IP, and then building out everything else necessary to really showcase to investors that we're worth investing in. Yeah, so we hope that when you guys go home tonight, you're thinking about just how exciting it could be to be a part of a solution that changes the way that we think about housing, from affordable housing to housing that's affordable with dignity. Thank you.
Judges.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. How do you intend to approach the marketplace for your first customers or your first real demonstration product?
Yeah, it's a great question. So right now, the way that we think about it, we have a support system here, and there is a problem everywhere around the US with affordable housing. And so we've garnered a letter of support from Mayor Elliker and a general contractor. We just got an LOI yesterday. And so we're planning on having our first set of pilots here in New Haven as a starting point to demonstrate that we're able to build in a place that's typically seen as a higher regulatory landscape versus a place like Texas or Florida. So we really kind of want to be a first mover in the Northeast, expand out from there, and then move to places where the margins make more sense for us, and we could actually scale more quickly to deliver all across the US and then around the world eventually.
And your first targets are single family or small scale multifamily?
We want to demonstrate, also a great question, we want to demonstrate the technology with single family homes first,
right.
Tiny homes initially to start, and then we build out from there. Really prove out that we can build these load-bearing walls with electrical harnessing, plumbing, and insulation routed within the walls. And then from there, we'll expand up and out. And so we'll do larger complexes and things that other construction 3D printing firms are unable to achieve.
Thanks for your presentation. You mentioned the construction industry being complicated and slow. One could argue so is the insurance industry. Have you explored at all the willingness to underwrite these policies for these types of buildings?
Yeah, so that is one of the future areas of exploration for the team. That is a very important facet of like implementing a solution in the space. We did have the opportunity to speak to a few operators on the insurance side. I was part of the housing clinic for the School of Architecture, School of Management, School of Environment 2 semesters ago at this point. And we had some people there that I spoke to about the product and like what we're building. And so, I mean, it comes down to whether we meet and exceed code and like how is that gonna work within the insurance framework? And so as long as, like, many jurisdictions operate based on how you meet the code versus the process itself. And so as long as we can rigorously demonstrate and prove that this is gonna be a safe solution, then insurance companies, as long as there's other buy-in from municipalities, will be willing to hop on board.
Thanks for the presentation. You mentioned the patent and sort of overall sort of intellectual property portfolio that you're developing. I heard both mechanical, material, and sort of overall automation behind the balance of systems. Where are you most proud and what are you most excited to deploy then, in this patent portfolio?
Yeah. I definitely think that the translational slipform technology that we're currently working through, where we're able to print sections of wall without utilizing a gantry and just fill what's in our forms with material and then articulate along a wall, almost like a robotic crawler, and you can have multiple devices on the wall at the same time, is very exciting and unprecedented. And so if we're able to achieve this capability, it really opens up an avenue for a whole realm of exploration into robotic construction technology. Think of this vision. You have multiple robots come on site and just build all the parts of the house. So you can have them hoisting the framing for the roof. You can have them installing different fenestrations, et cetera. And then the people will just come and do the fine detail work at the end. And so instead of having laborers on site for multiple months on end, people coming back and forth, weather issues where they have to like go back home and come back, you have the robots just do everything all at once, and the people go site to site. You could have the same group of laborers construct 40, 50 houses in the span that they would have just done one, which is a very exciting prospect.
On the cost savings that you're claiming versus the competitive landscape, is that primarily derived from the walls themselves? And how do you think about cost reductions in the other areas of, like, if you're going at the full house versus being a subcontractor just on walls? Can you talk us through that analysis?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll be transparent. Walls for construction of residential units make up around 20% just for framing. When you include exterior finishing and interior finishing, that goes up to around 55% of the total cost of a house, just for construction. When you add on HVAC and electrical and all those things, it goes up to around 75 to 80% of the total cost. And so we're bringing that all into one solution. So that's already cutting the cost, as long as we can bring that down, of the total like pie of housing construction. That 80% chunk is reduced significantly. We would like to do more of that as well down the line as we implement more capabilities into our robotic suite of technologies. So what was the other part of the question again?
How you think about your go-to-market?
Yeah, so in terms of go-to-market, we want to start with load-bearing walls. And so we'd work with general contractors initially, just very much in the beginning, just to demonstrate the technology, basically show that we meet building code and that communities are comfortable utilizing our tech. After that, we'd really like to expand to full residential units and acting as the general contractor for things that we don't have in-house yet and developing those capabilities over time. The reason for this is because the way that the margins are extracted along that supply chain, it's important if we want to deliver a solution that's actually lower cost and really benefiting society, we need to take in as much of that as possible, because if we deliver lower cost walls, like maybe the framer for the roof or the person that's installing the shingles might charge more, and the cost savings doesn't get transferred to the consumer. And so we really care about that. And so by taking more of that in-house and developing that expertise, it's going to help us transfer that to the consumer.
Apologies in advance for the unfair question, building on what Justine just asked you. Construction, general contracting is a notoriously painful business with lower margins, etc. I guess why would you want to, besides the passing on of the cost, which runs the risk of interface issues between different segments, take on that whole rigmarole of the fully vertically integrated approach rather than just like do what you're doing and do it really well and just work with really good partners given the heterogeneity of different geographies and the long fragmented tail of electrical, civil contractors and housing and every other sort of space. I'm just curious why you think this is the best approach to try to do it all at once rather than just do something really niche and do it really well.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's a balance that we can strike between the two. Starting with doing one thing really well, and then in parallel starting to build the capability to do the rest of the things, right? So that's like a longer-term vision of working with the real estate developers. I would say that we have an unfair advantage as well. My dad's a laborer in the construction field. He's been working walls for 30-plus years. They actually have experience with the problem as well. They experienced houselessness for a period of time, both my mom and my dad growing up. So it's really near and dear to like actually make an impact in this space. But with that said, I've worked summers with him, and I actually have connections in Florida where he works with general contractors and have an inside like scoop on like the process. And so we would be utilizing some of those connections to help make it a little bit easier to vertically integrate.
Great. Thanks so much, Nick.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Great, and what I continue to experience here is you're also going to get like a deep dive education in different sectors with each one of these. It's not just a pitch, but it's like a mini education into all these areas that you've never completely understood or fully incorporated. So thank you both to the first two. And really excited to welcome up Helix, Maya, and team. Come on up. Love to hear your pitch.
Hi everyone, my name is Maya Kane and I'm the co-founder of Helix, where we are humanizing and decarbonizing the fashion industry. There is enough clothing in existence to clothe the next 6 generations. How can this be? It's because the fashion industry's linear business model thrives on overproduction and rapid disposal, causing massive environmental and social harm. The industry is responsible for up to 8% of global carbon emissions, 20% of wastewater, and generates 92 million tons of waste annually. And despite the industry making trillions, less than 2% of garment workers earn a living wage. Current solutions that try to address this harm fail to drive meaningful change. Brand-led circularity initiatives we're seeing out of Nike and Lululemon remain small scale because they fundamentally conflict with corporate growth targets. Managed resale and rental platforms, think ThreadUp, Rent the Runway, still contribute to environmental harm due to excessive laundering, shipping, and waste. And peer-to-peer marketplaces such as Depop and Poshmark charge high fees and don't offer flexible local exchange options. In addition, none of these solutions are profitable. Full of contradictions and inefficiencies, these sustainable solutions fail to drive sustainable outcomes. We need something new, we need something better, and we need it now. I present to you Helix, a circular fashion marketplace transforming the way we find, exchange, and care for clothing in our own communities. First, Helix unites the city's local fashion ecosystem, centralizing clothing from personal wardrobes, pre-owned clothing stores, local designers, and garment care services, making it easier than ever to find and care for clothing in your own community. Next, Helix allows users to buy, sell, rent, and swap clothing. And our innovative infinite commission model allows original owners to earn 1% on every subsequent resale, shifting incentives towards garment longevity and continuous use. And lastly, Helix traces garment's journey, transforming fashion into living archives of human stories and care histories. Everyone, take a look at the clothing you're wearing right now and think of all the milestones and memories associated with it. Helix can cherish those forever. So let's take a look at what the experience looks like, starting with the seller's journey. Meet Amelia. She's a 27-year-old woman who has a dress collecting dust in her closet. She signs up for Helix and sets her location to the greater Boston area. She then requests free Helix tags that are scannable labels connecting her clothing to her digital profile. She receives them in 2 days and adds it to her dress. Next, after snapping a few photos and recording a video or voice note describing the dress, the embedded Helix AI does all the hard work, drafting a product description and suggesting a price. A day after listing the garment, she receives her first purchase request from Nyla. And her and Nyla meet up at a safe exchange location, which in this case is a vintage boutique nearby in the Helix ecosystem. So now let's take a step into Nyla's shoes as a shopper on Helix. She was looking for a dress on Helix, found Amelia's, they met up, she got to try it on, and purchased the dress. This dress quickly became a part of her life, wearing it to her birthday party, jazz shows, different art gallery events. And with Helix's Add Lore feature, she's able to add these memories to the garment's journey. One day she was having a little bit too much fun, and the dress ripped, but no worries. Well, on Helix, she's able to quickly book a mending appointment with a local tailor, and this tailor is able to mend the dress, scan the barcode, and add this care history to the garment. She loved the dress a little bit longer, but eventually came to a point where she's ready to let it go. In one click, she's able to relist the dress on Helix, moving it along, memories and all. And as the garment changes to different owners, Amelia, the original owner and seller of the dress, is able to capture a percentage on every transaction, earning passive income on Helix. So let's take a look at our business model. We have two main revenue streams. First is a transaction fee, where garments listed on Helix for the first time, we collect a 15% fee, split evenly between the buyer and the seller. For garments on their second or more exchange on Helix, 10% goes to the original owner, Amelia, and 5% goes to Helix. Our second revenue stream is seller platform fees. Low volume sellers incur no additional fees, while high volume sellers, think pre-owned clothing stores, curators, can choose between a flat monthly fee or a additional transaction fee, offering more flexibility and lower commissions than our competitors that are charging 20 to 40%. So fast forward 5 years, if we meet our goal of attracting 10% of the top 25 populated cities in the US and convert 25% of their spend to Helix, the impact could be huge. First, that will translate to $1.9 billion in local fashion economies and keeps 50 million garments from being discarded. It'll significantly reduce carbon emissions and water usage, all in all leading to $114 million in net profit a year, showing circular fashion can be profitable if we harness the power of community and existing local fashion communities. And how we're driving this vision forward is through our go-to-market strategy. We start by onboarding the most influential sellers in a city with our invite-only sign-up. We'll onboard care services, and we'll attract customers with community-centric events. And lastly, we'll onboard local slow fashion designers that align with our long-term vision of making fashion production more local with low-impact materials. And this is the team that'll make it all happen. I'm a current student here at Yale, and my background is in strategy and Nike and different retail sectors. I'm my co-founder, Micah, stand up, my twin sisters, a graduate student at MIT with her background in product management. And for the past 7 years, we've been building slow fashion solutions. Our first venture was Mive, a made-to-measure slow fashion marketplace that we then transitioned to Mive Labs to address issues of textile waste in our hometown of Columbus, Ohio. We've seen the problem from every angle, and we know we're the right team to drive this forward. And we've already had such great traction. I was a part of the Yale Climate Intensive last semester, which led to our acceptance to the MIT DesignX Accelerator. We're doing interviews, building our prototype, and expanding our team. And if blessed with a $35,000 investment, this will be transformative for our business. We're able to do product design, our mobile app development, best positioning us for our pilot in Boston, Massachusetts in spring 2026. Thank you so much for your attention today, and I hope you join us in our mission to humanize and decarbonize the fashion industry.
Thank you, Maya. Judges.
Great presentation. You'll be playing the role of a market maker, right? And you're creating a new way of thinking about that market where retail definitely exists. You even are highlighting here there is a pilot cost. You know, in the early stage of growth prior to having a balanced ecosystem, what will you have to do that's maybe less natural to the original business plan or the steady state plan? And, you know, where do you anticipate, you know, bumps in the road in order to catalyze that kind of demand?
For sure. This is something we gave a lot of thought to because currently there is no one who is tracing the stories of garments and the people who've worn them. We've seen the value of museums and people wanting to learn history in different aspects of life, but it's going to be a little bit different for stories. One of our interviews that we did, someone was mentioning that sports is the only way they feel connected with their local community, and we want to drive that same type of behavior through clothing. And we know that it's going to be a little bit different since it's not new. How do we value this type of storytelling and get people really excited about it? So I would say that would be the first aspect that's a little bit different for people. But through our interviews, we know that this is something people are very gravitated towards.
Thank you. Follow-up question on how you see the model working. You do have some experience in the sort of circular fashion, slow fashion movement. How is this? Do you have a risk of it becoming, not risk, but I couldn't tell from the comments. Will it be more rental? Will it be more sale? Do you envision any stress on the local cleaning and or tailor community, and how would you address those parts of the supply chain?
Yes. So my sister and I, as mentioned, our first venture was a slow fashion marketplace. We were working with independent designers that had using earth-friendly materials at the core of their business. And everything was made to measure. And we ended up moving away from pushing consumption because we're like, this is not the problem in the industry right now. It's really convincing people that we need to change our mindset on fashion. So to answer your question, I think that, sorry, wait, I think I got a little lost. Can you mention it one more time?
How do you really see it developing? Is it sales or rental, and are there other pieces of the supply chain you really have to cultivate that aren't part of your transaction and revenue structure, like dry cleaners or tailors?
Yes. So the great thing about our model, these behaviors already exist. No one's just centralizing them. So resale exists in pre-owned clothing stores. People are selling on Facebook Marketplace groups, and then platforms such as Depop and Poshmark have this, but you can't do it locally. So we're going to be able to step in and offer resale, rentals, and swapping through our platform. And tailors, we're not actually going to charge anyone for mending and tailoring in those care services because that's the behavior we're trying to drive. But if we are going to have our sharp focus in the beginning is going to be resale, but expanding to those different exchange methods.
Hi, Maya. Great presentation. Thank you. It seems like your real innovation is around expanding beyond peer-to-peer in the marketplace. And I'm curious if you could elaborate more on your vision for incorporating dry cleaners and tailors. For example, like on two ends. One, how that adds to your revenue model and where you see potential revenue from that. And then two, in the example you gave about Nyla, the first buyer of the clothing, what is her incentive to take that to the tailor so that it gets added to the life cycle of the material? Because won't it reduce the price at which she then sells it?
Yeah, so I'll start with the second question first. And I would say that since Helix is creating this new way of viewing clothing not as disposable, but like a living artifact, everyone in the system is encouraged and incentivized to keep it going. So even though Nyla is going to be purchasing a service to mend her clothing, when she resells it, she can keep the story going of that garment. And that's the type of behavior we want to drive, because the only way we can combat disposability is to think about how do we keep care of garments going. So we just see the care of it, not taking away from it, but adding to our value proposition. And then your first question, can you remind me?
It was thinking on that same addition of the dry cleaners and the tailors, the service industry, I see their incentive for sort of being available on your platform. How do you get revenue from that piece?
Yes. So it's really having tailors on the platform allows us to foster more transactions as something is being consistently rented or resold. So having that piece helps expand the life of a garment, and which kind of moves our business model forward because we make money off of each transaction.
Thanks for your presentation. Anytime a market is made, there are always bad actors. How will you identify those, and what is your mechanism for maintaining the integrity and ensuring quality control and sort of mitigating the impact of folks that may have a different motivation?
Absolutely. So what we talked about is for each actor on Helix, having, of course, review systems and having ratings. So, we had a on-time, pickup and exchange. I had a great tailor experience at this local tailor. So being able for people to know the quality of that exchange is really important. And it's something that we saw, as someone who uses Rent the Runway, that type of care and accountability just doesn't exist. You can send an empty box of your jewelry, Rent the Runway, they scan it, and thank you for returning your item. So those bad actors can't be identified in our current competitors. And I think also being able to operate at the local level and foster face-to-face connections with people meeting up in person, there's just a different level of intimacy there rather than, a shipping label was made, I have to send it back. So even just the interpersonal communication helps drive this more value in the platform.
You mentioned a number of different ways, the storytelling aspect of the virtuous reuse angle that the market will take. Flipping the narrative, what problems do you feel like you're solving, for individual stakeholders? Dry cleaners, of course, would get more business. That's an example of that. What other problems have you mapped that you feel like you're resolving? And, when you hit scale, are you becoming then a problem for conventional retail, right? That's also part of your target sort of strategy, yeah?
For sure. I think we're solving multiple issues outside of just people in the current ecosystem making more money. I don't know if anybody read 2 days ago, 54% tariffs on China, 46% for Vietnam, 37% in Bangladesh. And that shows the risk of producing new clothing. Being able to operate locally or anywhere you are and finding clothing that already exists is a very resilient strategy. So just being able to address the issue of making clothing, it's not being just made so far away and you're buying from all across the world. We're making it more local, helps shift the culture. And I think with the idea of storytelling, I read there's a quote, it's like, stories humanize objects. And I think that's exactly what we're going to be doing. It changes how we view clothing. It's not just something disposable, has no meaning. There's a story behind it. I can think about the people who are wearing it, the people who wore it for their graduation, whose mother, their grandmother passed it down. So it's really changing. A big thing that we're driving is just changing the mindset around clothing.
Thanks, Maya. You know, Nick had his team stand up and thank them. I also like to thank the parents in the audience who came from Ohio for that presentation. No great innovator or entrepreneur without some obviously wonderful and loving, supportive folks behind them. So our final presentation, we've got Marlo from Harness. Marlo, come on up.
Okay, is this thing on? All right. Good morning, everyone. Okay, I hope you guys had, a second to have breakfast. All right, so my name is Marlo, and I am the founder of Harness, where we're building a software platform to connect international investors to renewable energy developers in West Africa to mobilize catalytic capital for renewable energy projects. The UNDP estimates that $2.5 trillion is needed every year to reach our SDG goals by 2030. Yet, in emerging markets, developers still struggle to gain access to capital needed to get their projects online. Now imagine, you're a renewable energy developer in Ghana or Kenya, and you have a high potential project, maybe in solar, biochar, and you know the market need is there, you know you have the right team, and even financing is marketed, yet still, the whole process is a nightmare. Some governments, like the Ghanaian government, has committed $550 billion to the clean energy transition. Yet still, renewable energy only represents 1% of the energy grid. So we did a bunch of customer interviews, and from that we realized that there are 3 challenges underpinning this problem. 1, investors struggle to have a standardized way to evaluate risk specific to this market. 2, developers are unable to access financing that utilizes risk-abating methodology. And 3, projects are still manually managed. And so Harness is here to change that. Through our AI-backed platform, we offer matchmaking for connecting investors and our renewable energy developers. We also support in the risk assessment process through our automated AI algorithm, and we standardize the due diligence process. We're focused on SMEs because they're underrepresented and they actually can represent an amazing potential for scaling renewable energy. So we are building capacity building tools within our platform to help them to utilize their historical data to then learn from their patterns and to optimize their operations. And we're using industry standards in blended finance specific to de-risking this market. We integrate all of these solutions into one powerful marketplace. Let me show you how it's done. So we do have a platform where we bring our users online and they offer us information about their businesses, the projects they're trying to fundraise for, and we also collect data on their legal, their technical, and their compliance details so that we ensure that they are verified with a seal of approval. And once we collect all of that data, investors then get a list of different projects that they could invest into. And with those projects, they're automatically matched through our algorithm, and we offer AI-backed insights to support with deal closure and optimization as they scale. Our solution, it doesn't just stop there with the matching. We also have a portfolio view where each one of our users can understand historically their patterns in investment and with operating as a developer. And with that, we provide insights such as the types of deals they're fundraising for, the deals that have closed, what other details they can actually optimize with industry standards and insights. So we've already gained so much traction, and I spent over 3 years going back and forth to Ghana, learning about the market, developing business relationship that we're leveraging for partnerships across different stakeholder groups, including stakeholders here at Yale, where we've partnered with CBAY to do validation studies, conducted our accelerator through SciCity, and then also we are partnering with the Energy Commission of Ghana to ensure that we're aligned with regulatory interests, and utilizing the support of universities to make sure that we understand the market and support the market's capacity as a whole. We also have closed on a few deals ourselves. We have LOIs signed with different renewable energy companies, some listed here. And one case study in particular is Tino Solutions. They've been in the market for over 20 years. They've deployed over 15 megawatts across multiple countries in the region, yet still they cannot fulfill all of their requests, and they struggle to scale. We asked them, why is that? The reason is clear. Interest rates within the market are 30%, and that just doesn't make sense, and so they stay self-funded. Our team is passionate about the work that we do, and we come with so much experience in technology, operations, and specifically within the market. I came to SOM with 6 years of experience in software project management, working specifically to build products for some of the largest brands and with some amazing climate tech startups. And with that, I've supported with a strong team with operations experience. Our COO, Jennifer Burrow, has over 10 years experience leading teams up to 150 people across Nigeria and Ghana. We also have specific market experience personnel and team members, and we have operations team members here at Yale focused on building out our solution with our AI capability. We've partnered specifically with technical leaders, Decade, to ensure that we bring jobs to the market now and support across the ecosystem. We have advisors and mentors, some that are here today, that have guided us to ensure that we are leading and entering this market with a clear understanding of all its possibility. Speaking of possibility, this is a huge market. At $1.6 trillion globally, we're actually really at a perfect opportunity. We will reach our $23 billion SAM and $121 million opportunity specifically within these countries, given our business model that's focused on partnerships, one, starting in Ghana and then scaling across all of these countries within the next few years, and then also our revenue model of transaction fees on origination and closing of deals, SaaS subscriptions, and also white labeling solutions for institutional investors. We are a social enterprise, and for that reason, we're getting our B certification to make sure that we meet all of our impact goals. We know we have competitors, but frankly, many of them haven't even entered our market. We'll use our first mover's advantage to make sure that we stand out and differentiate ourselves with our AI capabilities, SME capacity building, automated risk assessment, and ensure that we bring the right financing to this market. And as we expand and bring our MVP 1, which we're almost close to completing, we'll go ahead and facilitate $1 billion. And with that, we see an opportunity of $11 million in revenue in the next 3 years. We see Startup Yale as the pre-seed to our pre-seed round. We're fundraising a total of $250,000, and with Startup Yale, we will be able to close on our LOIs and bring them to contracts, refine our investor use case, expand our customer outreach, complete our MVP development, and launch our first pilot projects with developers like Tino Solutions. Together, we can enable access to clean energy for over 130 million people and reduce emissions by 250 million tons. Let's work to build the future together. Thank you.
Thank you, Marlo.
Okay.
Judges.
Thanks for the presentation. A lot came through on the matchmaking side of the solution, the broker business that you're building for this. At the introduction, you flagged a lot of the cost that you can take out, the perceived risk that is not necessarily appropriately applied to some of these projects. Could you say more about what your broker-based business will do to reduce that perception of risk, or how will you underwrite these differently than the way the market currently does?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. So that's exactly why we've introduced a blended finance approach. So with blended finance, we can match concessional funding with other traditional funding options to ensure that for this market, and specifically to renewable energy assets, that the actual risk is decreased and we can get dollars to each one of these developers. And I'm just going to introduce my teammate, Jesse, to come on up. Great. Come on, yes. Yes. So now bounce up. Yes. And specifically for the investor perspective, we understand that we reduce the time and the effort that is resource intensive and dollar intensive for investors. And with that, with our automated and AI solution, we can really bring more value to them and specifically expertise within this market.
Hey everyone, like Marlo said, I'm Jesse. Just to add on to what Marlo said, the blended finance is really where the selling point is. But in addition to that, and to support that, and to make that make sense, that's where the AI comes in. What the AI does is that it helps us balance between the concessional and the private investor funding, right? So if we can find the right weight, then we're making sure that this project is sustainable not only for the investor, so it ensures returns, but we're also making sure that the project developers don't fall to debt, or they don't fall to giving too much equity away such that their project isn't sustainable anymore. So our AI helps by looking at what's already going on in the market and across global markets, collecting all of that data, kind of like 1,000 men or women in one, right? And basically helping us ensure that those weights are accurate, but also quickly attained.
Thank you. Follow-up questions on the data underlying your AI, like the special sauce that makes it better. It sounds like there's two types of data sets. One is that feeds into the model of what's the right balance of, I would call it, free and expensive money that you're trying to put together. And then the second on the side where you're talking about helping potential investors evaluate risk. Can you speak about how you codify that level of judgment and expertise with data sources, or how do you also put that into an algorithm?
So one thing that we'd have to figure out first and foremost is what are the risk factors that we have in the market, right? And once we have figured that out, then it's about tweaking the AI or coding it into the AI to look for those risk factors across not just data sets that we have access to, right, but the World Wide Web and whatever open sources we can find. And I think what's beautiful about AI is its ability as well to go beyond what risk factors we already know, and to look beyond that and to find other risk factors. What are reasons why these companies have failed based on previous documentation that has been submitted? And then go from there to find a good weight for each of these risk factors, combine those into one risk score, and present that to the investor such that it makes sense. Yeah.
And just to add one other point, overall, our goal is to bring financing. And so we use AI to augment that process and that experience. And we leverage historical data and these AI methods to actually continue to bring more and more value to each one of our customers. But I just want to make it very clear that in the end, our goal is to get more funding into the hands of developers that are doing the amazing work that they're doing.
So it seems like to attract the investor side of the marketplace, their key, you're unveiling opportunities, but really performing a vetting role, right, on compliance and credibility of the companies doing the development. I'm curious, how do you see that product being incorporated into what you do? Like you said, leveraging historical data, are you doing like KYC level of diligence on each of the developers?
Honestly, to start with our pilot, we would find as many risk factors as we possibly can, and then combine those risk factors, and we continue to expand from there. And that's why we are starting with a pilot program and not just going straight and opening it up to the entire market. And we're trying to do right by those we've already signed the LOIs with. And what that means is really ensuring that they understand the risk of like partnering with us, right? But also making sure that we don't immediately jump to like provide them with this product, even if they are a small pool, but really do the work of making sure that we have researched all of the projects that have been done before, found as many risk factors as we possibly can for that market, which in this digital age is an immense amount of data, and hopefully that will be enough to, will do right by our partners, which is the main goal.
Yeah, and we're also doing a manual due diligence process of our own. It takes time, honestly. We've leveraged our operations team out of Ghana and then also the Yale community to support in that due diligence, ensure that we are presenting the best potential projects to our investors. So, for example, Tino Solutions is an ideal investment in many ways, and we have the financials to prove it.
Thanks.
A quick question, and I apologize in advance because I'm scarred by my experience doing renewable energy development and investments in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, including a project in Ghana that never closed, funnily enough. But data and matchmaking aside, have you given any thought to how you solve the very real but unfortunate sort of country and political risks that are why investors expect 30% returns? And I'm talking currency, you know, a lack of stable institutions, a lack of clarity around permitting, etc. Just wondering what, if any, thought you've given to that, because oftentimes it's those local on-the-ground issues that are keeping investors out rather than a lack of access to data or relationships with developers.
That's a really great question. We have started thinking about that, and that's why, in partnership with CBAY, we did deep research into our strategy plan and which markets we're going to go into. And we found that based off of the Bloomberg NEF score on which one of these markets is ready for ready based off of regulatory ease and overall capability and potential, we identified these 5 countries being Ghana to start, then Nigeria, Senegal, Mauritania, and Mali.
And if I may add, I would say that what we've also done is that we've strategically, right, given, for example, the Ghana Energy Commission an MOU and got them to sign it. And why we do that and why we move with the paperwork is so that we can hold them accountable as well. We have everything in writing. We're talking to a global audience. You're working with global investors. So there is a wide audience of people who are there in the public to make sure that they're held accountable. And to be honest, it's for investors just like you. You know, I'd imagine if, you know, we had developed this project years earlier, we could have provided the risk factors that you needed in order to know which company you could work with in order to close that project. So we're hoping that we can develop this marketplace and that it can help you as well.
Thank you for your presentation. You highlighted at the very beginning that emerging markets developers lack that access to capital, and this model helps to facilitate closing that or addressing that challenge through the matchmaking services, through the risk analysis and due diligence. But there's another reason for the challenges associated with capital access, which goes to there may be interest, but oftentimes the check sizes to these individual developers can be quite small. And there's a gap between willingness and ability to deploy that capital. So how will you help to close that gap to bring more of the larger financiers into something where it has just been almost too small that it's prohibitive?
I think that's fair. We've identified average ticket prices to be $500,000. So that could be considered small by some, or just the right size by others, given the risk of investing into this market. We're also partnering with different institutional investors and are trying to move towards building a relationship with the likes of the UNDP and the IMF fund so that they already know exactly what's needed and they have their own strategy to attract SME investment and deliver investment to smaller projects. And yes, there's some risk to it, and it might be too small for someone who's not familiar with the market, but because we're focused on attracting investors that are aligned with us and are impact focused and likely already in the region, we don't focus on that as much. We try to see where we can balance all these risks with the partners who are ready for this type of investment.
And I think that the concessional funding actually probably sets that foundation, or like that low bar for our private investors. Ghana has received, I believe it's in the previous year, about actually over $4 million from the World Bank to cut their carbon emissions by about 900,000 tons. And this is documented. We have documentation, a signed MOU with the Ghana Energy Commission. So again, holding them accountable, saying that we have these energy developers, you're saying that you're committed to reducing your carbon emissions, and renewable energy is the main way to do that. So for us, it's about, let me say, not even convincing, because we already convinced them, but holding them accountable to setting that standard and that bar for how much funding they will provide to these developers, and then the private investors will sort of compete with that.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.
Great job.